Welcome back to Universal Insight. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for more updates. I bet you didn't know the Caribbean Sea, once a battleground for smugglers and law enforcement, has long been a strategic crossroads for global powers. During the Cold War, these waters saw tense standoffs, from the Cuban Missile Crisis to covert operations against regional adversaries. For decades, the U.S. maintained a vigilant presence, patrolling for threats both conventional and clandestine. In recent years, however, the U.S. military footprint in the Caribbean had receded as Washington shifted focus to other global hotspots. But now, the region hosts a dramatic U.S. military buildup, signaling a return to strategic prominence. In October 2025, the United States deployed 8 advanced warships and over 4,000 personnel near Venezuela, marking the largest show of force in the Caribbean since the 1980s. This move comes amid escalating tensions with the Maduro regime and growing instability in the region. This is no routine patrol. It's a show of force, shifting the region's balance and putting Washington and Caracas on a collision course. The scale and visibility of the deployment are designed to send a message not just to Venezuela, but to other actors in the hemisphere. Officially, the mission targets narco-trafficking, a persistent challenge in these waters for decades. The Caribbean has long served as a corridor for illicit shipments bound for North America, fueling violence and corruption across the region. But the scale and sophistication of the deployment suggest broader aims, deterrence and pressure. The U.S. is leveraging advanced surveillance, intelligence, and rapid response capabilities, reflecting a new era of military readiness. The Navy's warships, backed by advanced fighter jets stationed in U.S. territories, have transformed the area into a zone of military scrutiny. This posture echoes Cold War-era vigilance, but with modern technology and new adversaries. The deployment of these assets marks a strategic shift, moving from interdiction to overt military readiness unseen in decades. It signals a willingness to escalate if necessary, to protect U.S. interests and regional stability. A recent Trump administration memo reclassified cartel members as unlawful combatants, giving the Pentagon legal cover for lethal force. This controversial policy blurs the line between law enforcement and military action, raising questions about escalation and oversight. This operation is the latest in a long campaign against Nicolas Maduro, whom the U.S. accuses of corruption and drug trafficking. The Maduro government, isolated and under heavy sanctions, has denounced the buildup as an act of aggression. The message is clear: the U.S. is prepared to act decisively, and its patience with Caracas has run out. As the Caribbean enters a new era of military posturing, the world watches to see how far Washington is willing to go. The U.S. has deployed 10 F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters to Puerto Rico, a major technological leap in the fight against drug smuggling. The F-35, designed for air superiority and deep strikes, is an unconventional choice for counter-narcotics. Its presence signals more than surveillance. The use of such advanced jets suggests the mission's dual purpose. Media Group: F-35 jets on patrol over Caribbean waters. Military aircraft monitoring suspected boat traffic. U.S. fighter jets near Venezuela. Border a stock, a distribute equally tracking smugglers and deterring Venezuela's military. These fighters, with their stealth and lethality, serve as a constant reminder of American air dominance near Venezuelan airspace. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has called for a more aggressive approach. What will stop them is when you blow them up. The F-35s are not just for watching, they're ready to strike cartel targets with precision. Sustaining this force requires massive logistical support, indicating a long-term commitment. This is no short-term show of force, it's a sustained campaign, elevating the Caribbean front to a national security priority. Advanced military hardware now defines America's approach, blurring the line between law enforcement and war. U.S. policy has turned deadly, with at least 3 confirmed military strikes on alleged drug smuggling vessels, killing 17. The most notable strike destroyed a Venezuelan-linked boat, killing all 11 aboard, alleged members of the Tren de Aragua gang. By labeling cartel members as enemy combatants, the U.S. military now targets them as it would wartime foes. These are not arrests, they're lethal attacks at sea, bypassing traditional legal constraints. 2 vessels originated from Venezuela, directly tying U.S. military action to Maduro's government. U.S. planners are reportedly considering drone strikes inside Venezuela, targeting drug labs and cartel leaders. Any strike on Venezuelan soil would be a dramatic escalation, risking open conflict. Venezuela has condemned the U.S. buildup, calling it a provocation and violation of sovereignty. In response, Caracas has increased troop deployments along its coast and borders, placing forces on high alert. The government has also activated the Bolivarian militia, civilian loyalists trained for defense. This mobilization serves both as propaganda and preparation for asymmetric warfare. With both militaries on edge, the risk of accidental clashes is dangerously high. Even a minor incident, an aircraft straying or a naval misstep, could trigger direct confrontation. Diplomacy is fading as military posturing dominates, narrowing the path to de-escalation. Notably absent is the A-10 Warthog, famed for close air support, but unsuited for this mission. The current U.S. strategy focuses on maritime interdiction and deterrence, where speed and stealth matter most. The F-35's stealth and sensors are ideal for tracking and striking at sea, unlike the slower, vulnerable A-10. The A-10 is built for supporting ground troops, not hunting fast boats or operating in contested airspace. There are no U.S. ground forces in combat, making the Warthog unnecessary and risky. Deploying the A-10 would signal preparations for a ground invasion, a step the U.S. is not ready to take. For now, the American approach is pressure and limited strikes, not full-scale war. The arrival of A-10s would mark a dangerous escalation, signaling a shift to direct attacks on Venezuelan soil. If U.S. special forces or a broader air campaign were launched, the A-10 would provide crucial support. Such moves would transform the operation from counter-narcotics to open war, likely provoking a severe Venezuelan response. Allies like Russia and China could be drawn in, risking a wider crisis. Sustaining a high-intensity campaign would require far greater resources than the current operation. For now, the standoff is a tense war of nerves, with warships and stealth fighters holding the line. The arrival of the Warthog would be a clear sign. A new, more violent chapter is about to begin. As military tensions simmer in the Caribbean, the world's attention shifts to the corridors of power. International organizations, from the United Nations to the Organization of American States, convene emergency sessions, urging restraint on all sides. Latin American neighbors express deep concern, calling for dialogue instead of confrontation, wary of the conflict spilling across borders. Meanwhile, Russia and China publicly condemn the U.S. buildup, warning of destabilization and pledging support for Venezuela's sovereignty. European allies urge Washington to exhaust all diplomatic avenues, fearing a wider regional crisis. Behind closed doors, back-channel negotiations intensify, with envoys scrambling to broker a peaceful solution. For the U.S., the challenge is balancing pressure on the Maduro regime with the risk of international isolation. Sanctions, diplomatic warnings, and offers of mediation fly back and forth. The world holds its breath, watching as diplomacy and deterrence collide, hoping that words, not weapons, will decide the next chapter. As the world stands on edge, analysts and experts weigh in on the long-term implications of this unfolding crisis. Political scientists warn that the current tensions could set a precedent for future U.S. military engagements in the region, fundamentally altering the balance of power in Latin America. The ripple effects could stretch far beyond the Caribbean, potentially triggering new alliances and reshaping existing ones. Economists predict that prolonged instability could disrupt vital trade routes, impacting global markets and leading to economic downturns in both developed and developing nations. Energy experts are particularly concerned, given Venezuela's significant oil reserves, about potential shocks to the global energy supply chain. On the geopolitical front, the standoff could further strain U.S.-Russia and U.S.-China relations, escalating into a broader confrontation between superpowers. The international community fears that an entrenched conflict could lead to a new era of Cold War-like tensions, with proxy battles and espionage becoming more commonplace. Military strategists caution that the escalation might spur an arms race in the region, as neighboring countries seek to bolster their defenses. This could lead to increased military spending at the expense of social programs, exacerbating poverty and inequality. Human rights organizations are alarmed by the potential for widespread humanitarian crises, as conflict could displace thousands of civilians, leading to refugee flows and straining neighboring countries' resources. In the midst of these predictions, one thing is clear. The stakes are high, and the decisions made in the coming weeks will have far-reaching consequences. The world watches closely, hoping for a resolution that prioritizes peace and stability over conflict and chaos.